everybody. Welcome back to the Psychedelic Scene podcast. I'm your host, Jill Sitnick, and today we have Mark Anthony here to chat with us. And I'm looking forward to today because this is a conversation about Iboga and ibogaine. So, Mark, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
All right. So, everybody, let me give you Mark's introduction so you know who we're talking to, and then he's going to give you his origin story. So, Mark is a veteran of the U.S. Army and lives a very simple spiritual life bound by the insights, knowledge, and truth only sacred plant medicines and silence can teach. That silence, that was an interesting concept there. At the root of his healing was understanding the mind and addiction. In 2010, he headed south to Mexico, and Iboga Quest, ibogaine, often called the addiction interrupter, and I have a feeling we're going to be talking about that a lot, had the ability to reset his brain and nervous system back to an unattached, pre-addictive state. For the last 15 years, he has had a love affair with the Bwiti tradition. He's not the only one I know who would describe it that way. And his mission now is to continue his inner journey, like all of us. And currently, he is an Iboga provider, a spiritual integration guide, and a psychedelic addiction and recovery coach. This is going to be a fantastic conversation. Mark, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I just did a beautiful introduction, but introduce yourself to our audience. What's your origin story? How the heck do you find yourself talking on the Psychedelic Scene podcast?
Well, I found my way to plant medicines back in 2008, 2009. I had quite a few different addictions and, some behavioral addictions as well. But my main problem back at that time was with nicotine, of all things. A lot of people will come to psychedelics, in particular ibogaine or iboga, with much worse type situations, whether it be heroin or meth or cocaine
opioids,
or alcohol things. And, nicotine is always sort of diminished as, not such a life destroying addiction. However, I'm here to tell everybody that it was literally destroying my life. And because of that root addiction with nicotine, I had many other addictions that it just morphed out into. And had I not gone to Mexico in 2010 to work with ibogaine, I probably wouldn't be here today because it literally was destroying my mind. And that was it was funny how I ended up coming to work with ibogaine and iboga because that's a big mind medicine compared to a lot of the other medicines. So that's kind of what brought me to this medicine and to this path.
Wow. Okay. Well, because Iboga and ibogaine are not quite as well known as some of the other psychedelics, I want to let the audience know what we're definitely going to cover today. So if anybody out there is like, I kind of want to understand the difference between Iboga and ibogaine, we got you. So here's what we're going to cover. Who are the Bwiti? How does Iboga compare to other medicine experiences? Because we've both worked with Iboga. It is very different. And then what are the differences and similarities between Iboga and ibogaine? So we might talk about a whole bunch of stuff, but audience, I promise we will get those 3 questions answered. And so, Mark, do you want to dive in with the Bwiti and their traditions and a little bit of the history? How's that?
Sure. Yeah, that's good. That's a good topic because people a lot of times will address iboga as ibogaine, and it's pronounced iboga. It's spelled different ways. There's so many different ways where the Bwiti, the word Bwiti is spelled in 3, 4, 5 different ways, depending on which country you're in. But I mean, the Bwiti and iboga pretty much is right on the central western part of Africa, and it originates in Gabon, which most people have never heard of. I didn't until I started working with Iboga and ibogaine. Gabon, where's Gabon? I had no idea. It's this little small country that sits on the ocean, and it is surrounded by the Cameroon, which also is an origin of Iboga and Bwiti traditions, and parts of the Congo, and even up into Senegal. So that's the origin of where Iboga comes from. But the Bwiti tradition is is basically a spiritual tradition that revolves around the study of life. It is not a religion. It's not a cult. It's really a connection to nature, and it's a connection to truth, and it revolves around community and building community amongst people who participate in this tradition. So there really is no right or wrong with regards to doctrine or belief systems or anything. The truth is in nature, and it's in the medicine, and we are nature. So we learned through the Bwiti to respect ourselves and respect nature, because we are one and the same. And so when you look at the Bwiti and you talk about Iboga and ibogaine, well, ibogaine is basically one alkaloid of up to 100 or more alkaloids that comprise the root bark of this tree. It's a tree, and of those 100 plus alkaloids, about 30 of them have been studied for their effects and healing abilities, with ibogaine probably being at the forefront of that study. It's just in the West here with a lot of addictions and behavioral problems and traumas and different things with the mind. Ibogaine has kind of taken center stage with regards to its ability to help in those situations. But Iboga comprises all of the alkaloids, including ibogaine. So when you work with Iboga, you're essentially working with ibogaine as well. So you're receiving those same benefits. However, the Iboga root bark itself and other variations of taking the root bark work at such a deep spiritual level to really uncover the root of your issues and whatever you're dealing with in life. So it's very, very powerful in that way. And that's in a synopsis, that's pretty much how the Bwiti are. They've been around for over 2,000 plus years. Some of the museums have artifacts that date back at least a couple millennia, but they don't have exact dates. So there's a really long tradition of practice throughout that area of Africa.
Help people understand when you say, because I will be honest, when I first started working with Iboga, people were saying root bark. I'm like, what are you talking about? Help people understand what we're actually talking about in terms of the medicine.
Sure. Well, Iboga is the Iboga tree. It's a tree. Other medicines are, plants, leaves, extracted medicines from animals, toads, frogs, whatever it may be. But Iboga itself is a tree, and it's a tree that grows in that area, and they can get very big, but a lot of them are smaller shrub-like trees that have these yellow orangish fruits that grow off the trees, off the branches of the tree. But the medicine itself is deep in the roots of the tree. So when they harvest the root bark from these trees, or they harvest the roots, because what they do is they go out in ceremony. Everything revolves around sacred ceremonies with the Bwiti, with everything that they do. And so when they go to get the trees and get the roots, there's a big ceremony where they are connected with nature. They go out into the jungle, they extract the roots, they bring them back.
Really?
And they basically, cut the roots off, and then they dry them out. And I've seen like basically yards of just big giant roots of Iboga that are just sitting out in the sun drying out. And then when it gets to a point where it's dry, they take them and and there's a system for pulverizing them and breaking everything down into this powder. And that's basically what people will take in ceremony when they take Iboga, is this root bark powder. Yeah.
And I will say the phrase often comes to mind that psychedelic medicine is medicine. And as someone who has consumed root bark, it's not like having a chocolate shake. It's definitely you're taking
No,
medicine.
no. It's it has a very bitter taste to it. Uh, it can be challenging to get down sometimes, but it's a lot of it's just a mind over matter thing. You usually will take it in on a spoon, and knowing it'll get put into your mouth, and you'll chase it with water. If you're over in Africa and you're going through your initiation, basically the root bark will get sprinkled on top of a plantain or something, and you'll just eat it dry, and then they'll give you some honey to help with moving it down the throat. So it's a little bit more challenging over there to get the root bark down. But here in the West, when we're in ceremony with people working over here, there's water, that you basically just chase it down. And we also use some honey to get it down as well. And here in the West, there's also a few different ways to take the medicine, because there is a total alkaloid that people can also take, which ends up being placed in a capsule. And the total alkaloid is basically an extraction of all of the Iboga alkaloids in the root bark, and they're extracted out of the root bark into a concentrated form. And then it's dried and it's scraped together and it's placed inside of capsules. And you just pop them like you would take one like a pill. And you can create different dosages of them. People will usually take anywhere between 500 to 2,000 milligrams of TA during a flood dose journey, and root bark potentially between 5 grams and 100 grams if you're over in Africa. So, but the TA is a lot easier for if you're going on a deep journey and like a flood dose. It's easier to
Yes.
take a couple pills of TA that could be equal to 10 spoonfuls of root bark in one pill than take 10 spoonfuls of root bark and try to keep that down in your stomach. That's pretty challenging for us Westerners to get that much root bark down
It
into
is.
our stomach. So we take TA
Yeah.
capsules. Over in Africa, they make an Iboga tea with the root bark. They'll take a bunch of roots, they'll put it in a pot, and they'll boil it up, and then you'll drink the tea, which is pretty strong, and it kind of acts as a total alkaloid, because they don't do the TAs over in Africa. It's very, very traditional way of doing it over there. So those are a few different ways that you can work with the medicine in ceremony.
So before people get really excited and saying, "Oh my gosh, I just want to order Iboga TA," let's just, never, our podcasts are never about medical advice or anything of that sort. I think it is important to explain to people the health screening that is required, at least in the West, before you engage with Iboga. If you want to speak to it, I can speak to it. I want to make sure people understand that this is not quite nearly as recreational as maybe some other medicines.
For sure. Particularly Iboga and ibogaine. And we're going to go into the nature of this experience and how it's different than other plant medicine experiences. But this is a medicine that really has a big impact on the nervous system, with cleaning the nervous system up. There's some contraindications that really play a big part in this. At Soul Reflections, where our organization works, we're an integration community, and when we host retreats, we have medical staff that the owners, Patrick and Michelle Fishley of Soul Reflections, they have a combined 40 years of experience in the medical community as trauma nurses, working in the ER, serving ibogaine, and doing all these medical screenings. People aren't going to sit with us until they have all the boxes checked for healthy heart, healthy liver, healthy kidneys. We go through that process to make sure, first and foremost, that you are physically able and safe to do this. People have, the last couple of years, there's been some deaths during ceremonies, and some of it was negligence, and some of it was accident. That certain things happen, but people will come to medicine. They won't always disclose, particularly if there's addictions involved, things that they're still taking, because they just either dismiss it as not being a big deal, or they just want to take the medicine. And as a provider, you literally have to know be able to read people very, very well to see what they're doing. And us guys, myself included, coming from addiction, you can spot things that people are hiding. You can see behavior patterns with people and what they're doing, and you can keep an eye on them. So we're very, very safe with people, and that's first and foremost, So other centers hopefully are taking that seriously as well and doing the same. But I know for us, we are at the top of the line for physical safety and medical screening before people will sit down and work with this medicine.
Yeah, I mean, I mention it only because in my opinion, there is not enough harm reduction information about psychedelics in general.
Yeah.
Everybody should be getting checked out, regardless of whatever medicine that he or she may be using. Every time I've worked with Iboga, there has been medical staff on hand, on
Yeah, that's
premise.
good to hear.
And so I think it's just important to this is a little bit of we're going to have a great conversation. I love Iboga as a medicine, and I just wanted to make sure people understand you should not be doing it in a recreational, non-medically safe environment. And so there you go. Not medical advice, but Jill Sitnick there to keep yourself safe.
That's basically it, and that's your responsibility to ensure wherever you decide to go that they are screening you, that they are asking for these things, that there is a doctor or a medical professional on site during the ceremony. Like these are very, very important things for Iboga because there are so many contraindications that can happen with this medicine, particularly with prescription medications, which a lot of people are on one or more, and you need to know what contraindicates because it can kill if there's certain things Iboga does not like, and
Yes.
other medicines you might get away with it. You're not going to, with this medicine, not so much. So very, very important.
Not so much. All right. So now that we warned everybody and did our harm reduction thing,
Yeah.
so this is probably going to be one of the most fun parts. How does Iboga differ from other medications or other medicines? And this one is so different, but I'm going to let you talk.
Sure, sure. And, it'd be nice to hear your experience because you've worked with it as well, quite a few times. And someone who hasn't had the experience before, it is almost impossible to share what it's like. Because number one, and you can probably
Right.
attest to this for the 6 or 7 times that you've done it, each experience was different from the other. You don't end up having the same experience again. It's very, very different. And the reason why it's different is you're in a different place. And the medicine is coming in parts of the Congo and even up into Senegal. So that's the origin of where Iboga comes from. But the Bwiti tradition is basically a spiritual tradition. And this is a neurogenic medicine, which basically means that this medicine goes inwardly. It's not DMT related. It's not releasing, DMT and you're seeing sacred geometry and all sorts of crazy visuals. And it's not this outwardly explosion of energy. This is a very internal process that brings you inside. It brings you into your truth, into your experiences.
Yes.
And then it allows all that to come to the forefront so you can actually address and see the root causes of all of your experiences. And because of that, this medicine vibrates in a very different way than other medicines would. Number one, it lasts longer. This is a medicine that,
Yes.
depending on the dosage that you take, let's just go simply with a flood dose and just say somebody's getting a flood dose. And a flood dose is a dose that kind of, the way we describe it is it puts you in, we dose in such a way that we get you to that sweet spot where you're in a place where you can do your work, you can connect with the medicine, but you're not over the top, where that can be very traumatic
You
for a lot
still
of people.
you still know who you are.
Oh yeah, you're still very, very aware of who you are as a person. You still recognize that, I still have a body here. I'm laying on this bed or I'm sitting up or whatever. You're still aware that you're a human being for sure. It's not a complete dissociation with your identity or anything like that. But it is a experience that will take you to meet your soul, your essence, your truth. It will take you to the divine. It will take you and connect you with the spirit of this medicine. and it will allow you to see and experience visuals or auditory experiences of things in your life that you need to look at. And this medicine is more or less like talking to the source of all creation. You know, you go in, it knows you better than you know you. So when you go into this thing, there's no reason for expectations. You just set intentions of like, look, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm bringing to this experience. I'm just going to hand that over and allow this medicine to go in and say, okay, this is what we're going to do on this journey. And it knows exactly what to bring up, what to show you, what you need to work on, how long to spend with that, what to help you move away from and purge out. And you don't have to really do much, but just say yes and have this experience and work and communicate with the medicine and just allow it to be. Don't fight with it. I've had experiences. I've worked with this medicine probably 30 or 35 different flood dose times in the last 15 years. And I've had experiences where I fought with the medicine and you lose. It's a difficult night. It's not a bad night. It's a difficult night because that's what makes people uncomfortable, I think, with this and something that maybe they don't understand. I've been using this word truth for a long time since I've been working with this medicine, and people have a lot of different perceptions of what truth is and what that means. They see it as facts or outwardly stuff or this. I'm speaking from a divine truth within myself that this medicine brings forward, that silence and meditation and integration bring forward. And that's what I'm sharing. And that is a very humbling experience when you encounter the truth within yourself. And that's what this medicine really is about. It's about that.
Yeah. We are going to talk about someone's first experience in a minute. What you just said about the idea of you learning yourself. I remember distinctly the hours after the first journey where I was very much still in the medicine and I was milking it for as much as I could get because I thoroughly enjoyed the experience.
Yeah.
I was incredibly aware that Jill was not her brain, that there was Jill in her source, in her spirit, in her soul, and then there was her brain. And it was a really interesting, I've enjoyed playing with what are we going to tell the brain and what's the brain telling us? And when you talk to somebody who hasn't worked with Iboga, that sounds super, super crazy. But when you're in that medicine, you have this ability to separate the two. And I thought it was fascinating. There is a Netflix special with veterans talking about Iboga, and a graphic artist or cartoonist took the opportunity to show what the very first Iboga journey looks like in terms of cards and memories. And I'm wondering if you can, before I let the cat out of the bag, can you explain to folks kind of what they might experience on the first journey?
Sure. And I only share what I have directly experienced with the medicine myself. That's all I really have to go on. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to share what other people have shared with me about their experiences or what I've read or anything else. It's just, this is directly from what I know. And I know what documentary you're talking about, and I know where you're going with that. And that's with regards to ibogaine. And so this in particular, let me give you my first experience was with ibogaine in 2010. So I'll my first ibogaine experience very quickly, and then I'll do the same thing with Iboga. So you have basically an ibogaine and Iboga first experience, which is kind of cool.
Super.
So my first ibogaine experience was a flood dose of ibogaine, and I did it down at Iboga Quest down in Tepoztlán, which is still in existence. Very, very safe, medically safe. They are not shy with the medicine. If you're looking to really get some really deep healing work done, it's a good place to go. So my first experience with that, took a flood dose. It was the first time I had ever experienced, people have spoken of, or people that work in spiritual realms and so forth have heard about Kundalini awakening experiences where this energy rising from your root chakra right up to your crown chakra and out. that was the first time I ever had experienced an explosion of Kundalini energy or life force energy that just skyrocketed out. And so my experience, once that happened, and I wasn't quite sure what was happening, but I knew it was happening, and I just went with this, was a basically mind detox. And that's why we speak of Iboga and Ibogaine. They're mind medicines. They go through the mind, they go through the nervous system and clean up the brain and the nervous system and purge all that and defrag it. They basically defrag it like a computer database. And
Yes.
when that is happening, it's very confusing. You're like, what is going on? I'm seeing things that make no sense. There's stuff that's really possibly gory and ugly and scary and dark and nasty and whatever. And all I'm going to tell you is that's you. That's your mind. That's your thoughts. That's everything that you have thought about that's been going around your mind for a long time, and the medicine is
Yes.
moving all that out. Does that mean that you're a dark mind and you're terrible and all this? No, it doesn't. It just means that that's the nature of the human mind and the way we think and the attachments and the aversions and all the things that we do. It's not that pretty when you actually see it being cleaned up. So something that people could look forward to is that cleaning process of their brain and their nervous system, which really brings the mind down to kind of a clean slate sort of finish. So days afterwards, weeks afterwards, you almost feel like, wow, I feel so clean right now. I feel so fresh and
Yes.
like I can reset. I don't feel like I'm being yanked around. Things aren't moving real fast. I'm moving slower. My mind's not racing. I don't feel like I need to do a lot of things. Like it's very peaceful and calming after the storm. But mind you, when you're on the medicine, it can be a storm to clean all that up. And for a lot of people, when they work with other medicines that are DMT based, that stuff's not happening. They're experiencing stuff that is very maybe pretty and visual and enjoyable, and they're outwardly seeing sacred geometry, and it might feel really good. And not that you're not doing your work, because I've done numerous ayahuasca ceremonies and huachumo, which is San Pedro cactus down in Peru. I've worked
Yep.
with Habits
Yep.
Cojite, which is a Mayan medicine. And so I'm very familiar with the whole DMT experience and doing my work on those medicines as well. But this is because it's a mind medicine, people will tend to go on a journey, even if it's not a flooded journey, but it's always going to go through the mind before it will move into a psycho-spiritual space for you to really start to dig deep into your truth, and into your experiences. So that's something that people can look forward to. That happened on Ibogaine, just a complete physical and mental detox. Not a lot of spiritual work for me at that time. It was just a cleaning process, basically.
Right.
I did Iboga a year and a half later. Not only did I have that an energy awakening experience again, because Ibogaine is still present and it was very intense, but now we immediately went into this psycho spiritual space and this journey. And I was getting movie screens of my experiences for me to look at, to review. It was like a life review of sorts where I got to see the choices that I had been making, the behaviors, how I affected other people. And I had to really own and take responsibility for all those things. That is the more challenging part of working with Iboga. It's the freedom that comes with it once you do it. But that's why people come to do it. They're coming to free themselves from the chains of their own mind, from being bossed around and controlled by their mind, and reversing that. Now you're in charge.
Yeah.
Now you learn how to use your thoughts and see thoughts for what they really are. And you can decide what you're going to think about and what you're going to do, and you can make better choices. That's the magic of this medicine. It allows you to clean up that stuff, see what is true, and start creating a new life for yourself. That's why I keep doing it.
Yeah, I think I had come to Iboga after doing a lot of work. It was after my MDMA therapy. It was after a full year of medicine work and dealing with trauma and things of that sort. And so my first journey I described it as you're on a roller coaster. Iboga, and my first journey was Iboga. I have not worked with Ibogaine. I described it as Iboga is the roller coaster with a power washer at the front zipping through your brain. Like that's how fast it felt.
Yeah.
And I think because of the work I had done, I wasn't getting a lot of that fear that I'd kind of worked through, thank goodness. I was getting old memories. It was like a flashcard kind of thing. And I'm sitting there completely clueless. I didn't have any idea why it was happening, but I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then what it started to show me, which was fascinating, because I've always kind of thought healing trauma was like you just keep going deeper, 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 deeper. I always kind of thought it was healing in layers. Iboga showed me that I had healed this layer and I had healed this layer, and this over here in the middle still needed work. And I was fascinated with it. I mean, the second journey was like zooming in on what I hadn't healed so far. But if you had asked me, I would have thought, well, yeah, I covered that already. So it's really fascinating, but I can completely see, and I've had feedback from people that if they haven't, if it's one of their first medicine experiences or they haven't been a meditator or, they're coming in with some really big stuff, that first journey can be quite, I'm going to use the word disruptive and scary.
Yes, correct. For sure it is. That was sort of that was sort of my first experience. I think it was very disruptive. Nothing I couldn't handle. I mean, this medicine is meant for everybody, a healthy everybody. It's there to
Healthy
help.
everybody, right?
Always going to do good. It's always going to do good no matter what,
Yeah.
even if it's challenging or you have a light journey. It's giving you what you need, and it's doing good for you always. So I never second guess that. And I always come to the medicine with a very deep respect and reverence for what it is and why it's here to help us. And so it's kind of like bowing to this thing because it's that powerful and it's that good that I'm just privileged to be able to sit with it. So that's how I approach it. But it can be for someone who doesn't have any mind altering experiences at all in life, or it's their first time. Sometimes in a way that can be a blessing because you have no expectations as to what you're about to walk into. And when it happens, there are people there. If you're in the right place, like with our group, and other centers that have good providers and support, they're always there to help you along the way. Even if things get difficult, you are not alone. You are not going to be alone. If you are going to be alone, you shouldn't be at these places. So my recommendation to everybody is screen them more than they're going to screen you. Make sure that this is a place and these are people that they're holding your soul in their hands when they're giving you this medicine. You got to make sure that this is a place that you feel connected to, you feel safe, they're doing the right things. You be the screener. And in that case, when that happens, if you make the right choice, which hopefully everybody does, we have your back. We're there to support you when things get challenging. We're there to help you work through those things. We're there to keep you physically safe. There's integration, like you're kind of being walked with every step of the way. So it's a really wonderful process where you can kind of let go of your fears and just trust the process and not really get in your own way, in a lot of ways. But it can be for sure a challenging experience. I've had some of my journeys 20 times later be super challenging and a little bit scary at times where I'm just kind of like, oh boy, maybe I took this medicine one too many times. What's going on? And of course that's my mind fighting the process, saying, trying to get in the way when in essence everything is fine. And I'm just going a little bit deeper with the medicine or whatever. But it can be a little bit daunting at times and a little bit unnerving because it does affect the nervous system in a way that, creates certain effects on the body while you're on the medicine that can be uncomfortable sometimes or a little bit, waving because it works the motor skills in the nervous system. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It can also be my last Iboga journey, dare I say, it felt boring uh, because it wasn't a roller coaster ride. It was very meditative, it was very calm,
Mhm.
it was lovely. And I was very thankful. I kept saying to the medicine, come on, there has to be something else. Come on, where else are you going to go? And I had these beautiful images of it traveling my body.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
will say that it actually, this is again Iboga, it actually did help some pain. And for the first time in my life, after the first journey, I felt like I was able to take a deep breath. Now, I had come from trauma, I had come from a very constrained growing up and adulthood. And it was the oddest thing to come out of a journey and feel for the first time that I could be expansive and I could take a deep breath. And I asked the facilitators, and there were as many facilitators as there were clients, which was a lovely 1-to-1 ratio.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
said, is this what's up with that? Like, is this a trauma thing? And they were like, well, I'm not really sure, but practically everybody who goes through an Iboga journey like that says the same thing, that they can actually kind of breathe at the end of it if they've had a bunch of trauma kind of walking in. So I thought that was a fascinating,
Yeah.
unexpected part of it for me.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
I think one, you know, once you're in the middle of it, once you kind of come out of your journey and you go through the discovery day phase, and you start to come out of the you know, the journey itself over the course of 36 to 72 hours, depending on how long it decides to keep working with you, in the immediate journey anyway. Yeah, things can become very refreshing at that point, you know, very very open, and all of a sudden you can maybe do some things that you physically do some things that you maybe couldn't do before. And so this medicine works on so many different levels, physically, mentally, and spiritually, all at the same time. And it could be focusing on certain things with you depending on what you bring into the table. And for me, at times, it was all physical and mental. And then other times, we kind of just did a quick mental detox, and I was off to the journey, off to the races, doing some really deep spiritual work. And then I've had nights where I've purged 3 and 4 times, and because I had things to get rid of. I think that's one of the unique things with Iboga. An Iboga purge is not like an ayahuasca purge or a San Pedro purge or other
San Pedro
medicines.
purge. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a purge where you, yes, people will throw up. Sometimes it's just some liquid. Sometimes it's just energy. And you've finally gotten
Stress.
to a place where the medicine will bring a trauma or an experience or something that finally you have worked through, and you are ready to finally cut the cords to and just release this. And you will feel like you filled up a garbage bag of vomit. And really, what you did is you just purged a ton of energy. And when that usually happens, I just ask the medicine when I've done that, what are we getting rid of right now? What's moving out of me for good? And it will tell me. And that is just like a cords cut, and literally that is gone forever. Like afterwards, when I finally come back out of my journey and I get into my life, I literally have no attachment to whatever that was that I just worked through. And I can specifically remember exactly things that I was getting rid of, and they just were gone. They just worked it deeply, deeply, deeply. And finally I got to a point where I'm like, I'm ready. I understand. I get it. And it's like, okay. And then you just will get rid of this. It is the most relieving, peaceful, feel good experience that I've ever felt in my life, to just be like, I can't believe I just finally got rid of something that no longer serves me, and it's gone forever. And now I can actually, and it just elevates your vibration and your frequency to such a good, nice level. And that's the magic of the medicine when you're doing your work, and you finally get to a place of I'm done with this, you know, and it just goes, and it's gone. And so those feelings of being able to breathe, feeling free from something, freedom to do things, like the medicine gives you that opportunity to experience that, you know. So it works in so many different ways on all three of the big levels of mind, body, and spirit. And
Yeah.
so I've kept coming back for the last 15 years and working deeply with the medicine, because it just keeps bringing me to deeper levels of truth and love and understanding, and it just keeps getting better. So wonderful tradition in medicine.
It's interesting because I'm a big proponent of integration, because going through my PTSD therapy, integration was paramount. I didn't get the medicine marinated in my brain, and then 90% of the healing from the MDMA work happened afterward. I do remember a phrase. One of the facilitators said, sometimes Iboga does instegration. I was like, instegration? Because I think I had just said, I figured this out. I'm done with it. It's over. I still had other things to work on. And my facilitator was like, yeah, sometimes Iboga does instegration. Like, right after your journey, you're done with something. And that I found fascinating. I wished it did it on everything, but I still had integration with other stuff. But it was the first medicine where coming out of it, it was like not just a perspective shift, I'm done with this. I'm moving on. It's over. I found that really fascinating.
Absolutely. And I've had many experiences with those sort of things where, and I could give you some examples, but it might take too long.
What,
But
take too long?
I remember some of these journeys where certain things were work instantaneously. That's done. And I immediately had a
That's
new
done.
connection with how to treat myself or how to treat the earth or how to handle this particular situation in my life or this relationship or whatever it may be. And it just gave me immediate connections to what was true and got to the origin of it. And when you work with this medicine deeply, a lot of times it's real big in the beginning and there's just a lot of stuff going on and there's things that
Yes.
might be moving really fast. And I always tell people, don't try to stay with it. Just let it move. Things that need to slow down for you to see will slow down. You can see it, but things can be very chaotic at times mentally and
Beginning.
even
Yes.
spiritually when you're working with it. And you may not understand and you're like, I want to remember that. Don't try to grab on. That's the mind, the addictive mind, the ego trying to say, I got to remember this. Let me get up and write stuff down. Like, no, you're just going to sit there and you're being the observer. This is about becoming an observer
Yes.
of this energy and just trusting this journey. I think
Absolutely.
with that being
Yes.
said, you can dive very deeply into this and learn at levels that really just transform, in a way where it doesn't show up until later on. And that's why with Iboga in particular and ibogaine, integration is monster huge with these medicine with these particular two things, the alkaloid and the Iboga tree itself. You might be able to get away with it with ayahuasca or bufo or some of these other things and just have a wonderful experience and go home and back to your life and do whatever. But with this, because it's such a deep inwardly journey and it's really working the mind
Yeah.
and the spiritual world, it's of utmost importance. That's why we are Soul Reflections integration community. It's an integration community first and foremost before the retreats. And we offer people a year-long kind of subscription once they come to, or membership, not subscription, once they come to a retreat. And for a year, they can attend all the activities, fire ceremonies, fire talks, breathwork sessions, and learn how to create practices that support what they learned on this medicine. And then you'll have a chance to actually change your life and make different choices. So it's super, super important with this. Otherwise, it ends up being something 6 months later. It's like, that was great. And I remember these things. And you can easily fall back into old habit patterns and old choices and things.
Yeah.
And you're right back at square one again. So, I mean, integration is a big deal.
I've said to people, because people are like, oh, come on, integrate, da da da. And I'm like, look, if you want to get your money's worth out of a medicine experience, the way to do it is concentrating on integration. That's how you get your money's worth. And I have to
Absolutely.
actually break it down like that for some folks because they just don't get it. All right, I do have a question. So
Okay.
the similar, we've definitely been going back and forth between Iboga and ibogaine because I've never used ibogaine. Why is, and maybe this isn't a good question, I'm not sure, why is ibogaine used specifically with addiction versus just using the root bark? What's the advantage?
Well, the Bwiti, when they discovered Iboga was not intended to work with addiction interruption or addiction in
Addiction.
general. It was intended
Right.
for communication. It was intended for connection with nature. You basically use it, you connect with it, and you partake with Iboga in the ceremony when you need it. It's kind of like working with having even taken an antibiotic. You don't take an antibiotic just to take an antibiotic. When you need to use it, you use it, you get the benefits from it, and you move on. With Iboga, it's the same sort of thing. Like you're in a place, it's not something that you turn around every other weekend and you decide to do Iboga. There are ways of microdosing with it to do psychospiritual work through meditation and so forth, and we do those sort of things with it. But in general, it's a medicine that requires you to really take seriously, and to sit with in such a way that you are doing your work, and it's not, and it's something that's very spiritually based. That's what this is really intended for, and that's the big difference between someone who is going to go work with ibogaine, and someone who decides they
Okay.
want to work with Iboga. Can you do addiction work with Iboga? Absolutely.
Okay.
And I've done some of it myself.
Okay.
I've watched other providers do it as well, but not everybody is able to work with the root bark and do Bwiti work from a detox perspective. Ibogaine is the main alkaloid. It's known and it's been researched for addiction interruption. It will go in on a flood dose and it will literally reset and clean up the nervous system and the brain from a mental and physical perspective and give you a fresh start. A fresh start. It's not a magic bullet. It pretty damn close at times, depending on the doses that you take, but it's more or less giving you an opportunity to make some changes over the next 3 to 6 months. It's giving you a window to go to a fresh start where you're not getting bossed around as much, cravings are reduced, and you're able to go and kind of go off. And it because it's an extracted alkaloid, you're not working with all the other alkaloids. So there's really not a lot of, I would say,
The other,
effects. The
you're,
other alkaloids play a big part. If from
okay.
from a Bwiti perspective, there's a lot of African energy in the Iboga root bark, and when you're extracting the alkaloid, you're kind of extracting a physical component of the root bark, and the spirit of the medicine is not per se in that alkaloid. It's part of the alkaloid, but all the other alkaloids are missing. So my direct experience with working with ibogaine was an incredible mental and physical washing and scrubbing of my body and my mind and my brain. The first time, that was in 2010, because that's what I needed in 2010. I had a lot of addictions, physical and mental, so it went in and it did the job. I did go back to Iboga Quest and I did ibogaine again in 2022, after I had done about 25 plus Iboga flooded journeys. I had been to Africa to do my full initiation and my rites of passage, and I did ibogaine 12 years later after all of that, and I had a completely different experience, and it was very spiritual. So the reason being is that even ibogaine will go in and it will do what it needs to do, and it will meet you where you're at. What it did for me 12 years later was I went in and it cleaned up things and it opened up all my channels and my connection into the spiritual world. So instead of the spirit of Iboga and the Bwiti guiding me into the spiritual world, it was the divine that was guiding me into the spiritual world. So I just had a direct link and connection to divinity and to my soul. And I had one of the most spiritual experiences I've ever had on any of these. And that was with ibogaine. So there is really no set rule that, ibogaine is for addiction only and Iboga is for spiritual work and Bwiti work. It really
Okay.
comes down to you. They're tools that allow you to open yourself up to the truth. And each time you work with it, depending on where you're at consciously and what's going on, the medicines will just meet you in those spaces. So it's hard to say you take this and this is going to happen. You work with Iboga and this is what it's going to give you, because we really don't know. And it's so different and unique from one person to the next. But when everybody works with it over in Africa and they have been working with it over time, doing their work, and then everybody comes together in community, it's a really powerful experience. And that's really what it ends up coming down to. It's a unique experience individually, but it's a collective community path with the Bwiti. So I kind of look at them and I kind of treat them now based on my experience over 15 years. I could sit with either one of them and have a very, very spiritual experience, and it would be awesome for me. But in the beginning, that wasn't the case. In the beginning, I needed something different, and I think Ibogaine gave me what I needed at that time. And when I was working with Iboga gave me what I needed at that time. And I think everybody can expect that when they work with these medicines, you're going to get what you need, and that's it.
I think you validated my theory. My theory was if you're focused on an addiction stopper, then the Ibogaine, I'm going to use the word clinic, that might be the wrong word, but an Ibogaine facility that focuses completely on addiction is a choice. If you're like me, I was focused on trauma healing. You can do either one depending on, do you want more, I chose a more ceremonial kind of environment, or if I wanted a more clinical environment. How am I doing? Am I on track? Was that a decent interpretation?
That's a perfect interpretation, exactly. And I think when
Okay.
you are wanting to do spiritual work and get to the roots of your pain, your suffering, your mental traumas, or just your way of thinking. Like, there's things that people just want to change in their life or understand. Like I say now that understanding things in life is the new way of healing. And this medicine is all about understanding the truth and reality within yourself, and remembering who you are. That's what this is all about. So with that being said, you are spot on with regards to, if your intentions are, I want to understand more deeply about my childhood traumas, or I want to understand why, which was the case for me when I came to do Iboga versus doing Ibogaine a year and a half prior. I had a relationship thing. I was really misunderstanding love and relationship, not only with myself, but with another person. And I was just beat up. And I came to Iboga to understand relationship and love. And what it taught me was one of the most magical things that I've taken with me ever since, which was, dude, you need to go in and develop this relationship here and understand love from the inside out. And then all that'll just take care of itself. And that's the journey that I went on, was to develop that relationship within myself, with my true source, my true essence. And then I came back around, and it was one of the most difficult journeys I've ever been on, because I missed that part. I didn't understand that part. I was looking outside myself for pleasure, for intimacy, for, a lot of things, for connection. And the real beauty was connecting on the inside, and then everything just got so easy after that happened. And I just kept evolving from there. So spiritual work, trauma work, things that revolve around the mind and understanding energy and things like that. Iboga. You have an addiction, you have things where you're just looking for a clean physical sweep, and you want to clean up your body and clean up your brain, and you got a lot of attachments and aversions in life. Find an ibogaine clinic and give yourself an opportunity to hit that reset button from those perspectives. And then, if you choose to, come on and sit with the Bwiti and get dive into your spiritual work and really, get busy with that and have a wonderful experience. So it can be a two-step process. And in the past, I saw people that just came straight to Iboga for addiction and their spiritual work, and it happened to be an
I've seen that
opportunity.
too.
Yeah, where that was
Yeah.
afforded to people. It's not as much anymore. It's just been separated. But I always like to dismiss when people talk about ibogaine not being spiritual, because that's just not true. It's not true at all. It can be spiritual depending on you and what you're bringing into the experience. And I'll leave it at that. Most of the time it is something that will be an addiction interrupter for most people, like it was for me the
Yes.
first time around. But then a lot of times you can work with ibogaine and you can just do some really deep spiritual work with it as well. So there's opportunities either way. But I think the teachings of the Bwiti, the wisdom that they have to share over a couple thousand years, it's really priceless when you sit with these people and they share some of the things that they know about spirit and the divine and this medicine. And then they just basically say, don't trust me. Go take the medicine and find out for yourself. And
Right.
that's their philosophy. It's like, we can say what we want to say, but they're human beings like everybody else, and they've done their work to discover what's true. You go do the same. And so there's just a lot of respect for who they are. It's the simple ways that they live. Very strong, very beautiful, compassionate people. It's a pleasure to really sit with them over in the jungle and for a month in July and do this work. So,
Oh
so
my
those are
gosh.
some of the ways that the differences between Iboga and ibogaine and the choices that people can make with those.
I don't know. I had an invite to go last December and I didn't do it. Now you're making me rethink my choice. Who knows? Who knows? We'll
I
see
think
in
you
the
get a good
future.
choice not going in December. I think if you're gonna go, I think if you're gonna go, you want to go July or August because that's dry season and that's when it's a lot more comfortable physically in the jungle, less chances of malaria
Oh,
and the mosquitoes and all that. And you go in December and it's full blown humidity, rain, mosquitoes, the whole 9 yards. So you probably made a good choice.
I've done the Costa Rica rainy season. No, okay, good, good. All right. So, Mark, before we start kind of explaining all the retreats and everything that you have, my favorite question? What question have I not asked that I should have?
I think the question is one of the big questions that you could have asked or that we could have discussed was, the difference is about expectations. Should people come into this medicine with expectations and as far as like this is what I want to happen, and if this doesn't happen, this is going to be a failure, and this. My answer to
Not at
expectations:
all.
throw expectations out the door. Everything,
Yes.
and not just with medicine, but with life. Intention is everything. You come into this with sincerity from the heart, with a direct intention of what you're bringing to this experience and the medicine. And by the time you start taking the medicine, you forget about your intentions. You've already put it out to the universe. You've already spoken to the medicine. We've given instructions to the medicine to go in with all these intentions. And then the medicine is going to do what it's going to do. There are no right and wrongs with these experiences and with this medicine. You
Right.
preparation is just as important as integration is, and maybe even more so, because without good preparation, it's kind of hard to have a retreat or have an experience with Iboga or ibogaine that will turn out super well. If you haven't done your due diligence ahead of time with intentions, with maybe keeping the body clean, getting off things that can contraindicate to protect your life, all those little things, make a big difference. So the question of, should I set my intentions and do preparation work before an Iboga ceremony or an ibogaine ceremony? 100%. And it's one of the most
Yes.
important things to do to get ready for a ceremony is prepare, because then the work's done and all that's left to do, the only thing that people are responsible for
Just receive.
when you get to the point is just surrendering. You just surrender to the medicine and
Mhm.
say, that's it. Okay. I'm giving you everything now. I'm going to forget about what I've put into this, and I'm just going to trust this process, and off we go. And know that you're being supported by providers, you're being supported by the medicine, you're being supported by the spiritual world, and everything's good. And that's the
Yeah.
question that I think I wanted people to hear is the importance of preparation and intention.
Oh my gosh. You talk about not releasing your expectations. The second journey, one of the facilitators was talking about the black screen of Iboga, the way he described it, the black screen. And he's just like, yeah, I just had, 10 hours of a black screen. And internally, somebody whose nervous system was still not really super regulated,
Yep.
I cringed. I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way I could handle that. Oh my gosh, my brain has to constantly be working. Sure enough, what did the medicine give me? The black screen. And it was lovely because I didn't fight it. I was like, okay, this is showing up. This is what I was afraid of. This is
Yeah.
interesting. And it wound up being the calmest experience. I swear the medicine needed to
Sure.
teach me that it's okay to be quiet.
Yes.
It's okay to be calm. It's okay. There's no danger in it. And I remember the morning coming and I was like, wait a minute, that journey was 15 minutes. Wait, let me go back. It was so lovely. So yeah, relieve, don't have any expectations, don't have any hard, oh, I can't have this happen.
Yeah.
Surrendering to it and just being super curious about why it's presenting something to you is like the best
Yeah.
advice. Yes, hands down.
I agree. I think one thing I wanted to share about the experience in general that people come with, everybody wants to see things. Everybody wants to have
Yeah.
visuals. And it's not that I'm a very visual person, and I happen to get some very deep visuals on Iboga. More once I got further
They're
down the
different
line,
though.
but they're different.
Yeah,
It's a completely
they're
different
different.
visual, and they're awesome. But the best part of all my journeys, regardless of the visuals that I've had, visual stuff you can forget about. Like you'll get home and 6 months later, you aren't going to remember everything visual that you saw, but you won't forget how the medicine made you feel. And I think the best
Yes.
part of Iboga is the somatic experience, regardless if you don't see a visual at all night, like you said, that blackout screen where you're just in this place of
Yep.
just being and just peace, but you're feeling the truth. You're feeling things
Awesome.
that make a lasting
Yes.
impact you will never ever forget. And that's the difference between Iboga and other medicines is this somatic experience of this medicine is going in to teach you something and show you something that you permanently can take with you for eternity, that you will just not go back to. And no other medicine will offer that. And with that comes a lot of feeling and auditory listening type experiences on the medicine where you just sit there and
Yes.
you're in the moment, you're breathing and you're listening and you're letting the medicine, you're letting your soul, you're letting the divine share with you what you need to know. That's something that's very different with plant medicine than with others that people come to this who haven't done it before can get, as you said, disrupted with because they're thinking, they're expecting a sacred geometry and
Yeah.
beautiful colors and all this outwardly visual stuff, and it's not going to do that for you. It's going to teach you in a
Yeah.
different way, more beautiful way. For me, I think it's the best medicine on the planet that the Divine Mother put down here for us. So, but that's me. And everybody has their own medicine and their own spiritual paths or paths that they connect with. But this for me, there's nothing more powerful than understanding the truth and love within yourself. And so here we are, you know.
Awesome. All right. So tell us about, I know you said you have some upcoming retreats. We're
We
recording
do.
this in January. So what do you have coming up?
Well, we are going to be down in a place in Baja called Cabo Pulmo, Pulmo. It's just north of Cabo San Lucas, up on the Sea of Cortez. And we have a retreat, a Bwiti retreat serving Iboga from April 23rd to April 30th. And then we have a short break, and then we are doing something special that really isn't out there yet. And we are starting to do integration retreats following that, which doesn't require anybody from the first retreat to go to or anything. Anybody can come to the integration retreat. And it's going to be probably a 5-day retreat from May 5th to May 10th. And it will encompass some microdosing of Iboga each day. There'll be a variety of practices and fire ceremonies, and you will be also learning a lot about the Bwiti system, but you'll also be doing a lot of consciousness work as well. So we're going to be teaching and sharing practices revolving around breath work and meditation and various different ways to practice mindfulness. So people who have worked with really any medicine or who have done any kind of spiritual work are welcome to come to this integration retreat. So that's how we have structured these now, is doing a Bwiti retreat followed by an integration retreat where people can come and experience Iboga from a microdosing perspective and learn a lot of different practices for integration, and potentially decide whether they would like to come to an Iboga retreat down the line. Then we are also taking a group of people, which is open to anybody, over to our village over in Africa for the month of July. You don't have to go for the whole month. You can go for any amount of time, 7 days, 14 days. I went for 2 weeks the last time I went. I'm going for a month this time. So that gives people a chance to go over to the motherland and go to the village and work traditionally with the Bwiti people.
The medicine.
Work with the medicine, sing, dance, do traditions, do your initiation, do a lot of really cool things. And then we'll be back again in November next year, back down in Baja for another Bwiti and Iboga retreat, followed by an integration retreat. So that's our schedule for this year so far.
Awesome. I do have to plug microdosing Iboga. It can be an incredible, you got something going on, you want to try to work it out a little bit of, I've microdosed it occasionally to just kind of like get out a cobweb or something. I wasn't quite ready for a psilocybin journey, like wanted something calmer and a little bit more introspective. So that'll be an interesting retreat. That'll be interesting for folks.
It'll be really good. It gives people who have never worked with Iboga before a chance to kind of get a feel for it and learn some stuff about the Bwiti and about the medicine, and also develop some practices. And then for those who maybe have been to a retreat and they're like, I need a week to actually develop some things. I'm still struggling a little bit with understanding some things. I want to go back and work with the medicine on a daily basis and develop some practices that I don't currently have to keep me in line with where I'm headed with my life, So it gives a lot of opportunity for people to do that. Yeah.
Super. Mark, I will have all of your contact information in the show notes so people can reach out. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. It's not too many people you can have an Ibogaine conversation with. So thank you for humoring me as I asked my questions, but really just excited to talk to somebody else who kind of understands the power of this medicine.
Sure. Absolutely. I'd love it. And if you'd like to take it further another time, I'd be happy to come back and we can address other areas, because this is a big medicine with a lot of things going on, and we could answer some other questions that people might be interested in as well.
I think so. I mean, considering what's happening over in Texas and the amount of research that I think is going to be started up in the U.S., I might just take you up on that, Mark. Thank you.
That would be wonderful. Yeah, I would be happy to come back.
Awesome. All right. Take care.
Thank you, Jill.
So one of the big takeaways from this conversation is that Iboga works very differently from other psychedelic medicines. I speak from experience. It is a deep inward process that engages the nervous system. It can be incredibly disruptive or incredibly calm, but no matter what, preparation and integration are essential when you're working with Iboga and even ibogaine. So if you're curious about this medication, especially when it comes to addiction, feel free to reach out to Mark or do some research. There is a lot of ibogaine research happening around the US. And so with that said, if you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to like and subscribe. And if you're looking for more psychedelic culture, head on over to psychedelicscene.com. That is our homepage. You'll find lots of information about psychedelic culture, art, books, music. It runs the gamut. And if you like that content, consider buying Jason, our founder, a little cup of coffee, because he is the one who keeps the lights on. And so with that said, family, until next time, take care.